Hey there, Griff Hamlin here. Welcome and thanks for joining me today. In today's video, we're going to talk about something that, well, for blues players may not be that popular, but it's an important topic. If you want to play guitar, technique and hand position is a really important thing. Now, this is not going to be one of those videos where I'm going to give you all kinds of exercises and all kinds of stuff, but what I want to demonstrate to you is the single most common technique slash hand position related issue that I run into and how to fix it. So we're going to kind of cut to the chase here, but I want to make it clear that this is a really important thing. And I always call poor hand position sort of the glass ceiling. And what happens is I get a lot of students that'll come in and they sort of get to a point where they've been working on something and they just can't get it any better. And it just can't, they've just been working on the same thing for months. It just doesn't get any better. They try other things, they come back to it, it just doesn't get any better. And they feel like they're kind of bumping up against this glass ceiling in their progress. And I would say, probably in 95 to 98% of those cases, the problem is in the left hand position. And so what I want to show you is what it's supposed to look like and what it often ends up looking like, and what you can do to sort of work on going from the not so good to the better. Now, I want to be clear that in some ways this is kind of a classical type of hand position that I'm going to show you, and I realize that for blues, we wouldn't want to use a more classical hand position, but I'm going to explain why we want to do this in a minute. So the main thing is if I were to play the first, second, third, and fourth frets on my sixth string, when I'm done, you notice that I have each finger still on the fretboard, okay? Now what you can't see is my thumb. Maybe you can kind of see it poking right up there. My thumb is opposed, meaning pushing against, sort of between my second and third fingers. Okay, so when I have all of these fingers down, my thumb, you can see, is kind of, up here, about behind my middle finger, right? What I see a lot is more of a violin type of hand position. So now you see my thumb is sort of pointing down towards the headstock. Okay, this is going to be really problematic because if you notice that my finger's closed up, I can no longer put one finger on each fret. Okay, it does not matter how big your hand is. And that's really, really important. The size of your hand isn't going to be the limiting factor on something like this. Okay, if you're trying to do something really crazy like that, sure, making a 7-fret stretch might, the size of your hand might matter. But I don't have a big hand. Excuse me. Pardon me. I don't have a big hand. I'm just able to, get down there and kind of do what I need to do to make those stretches, and I'm going to show you how to do that. So we're going to just concentrate on I'll say the basic fundamental technique. Everyone should be able to do this. Okay, it serves two purposes. It serves as kind of a litmus test, for one, because if you can't put one finger on each fret, and one thing I gotta mention, my pinky is weird. My pinky, you'll notice, kind of flattens out on that knuckle. That is neither good nor bad. It's not an advantage to me that mine does that, which would make it some sort of disadvantage to you. It truly doesn't matter. For the purposes of my demonstration, I actually wish that it curved better, but it doesn't. It kind of straightens out. Because what I want to show you is that this last knuckle, notice it's closer to the body of the guitar, excuse me, than the tip of the finger is. If you use the wrong position, I'll say more of a violin style hand position, you'll notice that now my pinky is kind of folded over, and that final knuckle is actually closer to the headstock, and I'm sort of reaching with the tip. And while that'll work fine on a violin because it's very small by comparison, and it, for whatever reason, I don't play violin, I don't know anything about it, but for whatever reason, that's what I see in violin players, so it must be advantageous in some way. I just don't know what that is, nor do I really care. We're guitar players. Now, the one thing about a classical hand position is that it doesn't allow for bends. Okay, you'll notice that when I do a bend, you can see my thumb coming over the top. The reason that my thumb comes over the top is because I need leverage. Okay, but the thing about the thumb coming over the top, that's our blues hand position, okay? What we're going to be talking about is, I'll say, our classical hand position, our traditional hand position. And what we're going to do is we're going to aim for perfection. What I always say is aim for the stars and settle for the moon. So what I mean by that is if you can get to where you can go very simply 1, 2, 3, 4, okay, first fret, second fret, third fret, fourth fret with each finger, and keep all of your fingers down, that's perfect, okay? And what we're going to do is we're actually going to kind of continue with that pattern. We're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4 on multiple strings. Let me show you. This is kind of a little, I use it as a warm-up, but it's also a great way to facilitate this process. So, like I said, I have 1, 2, 3, 4 on the 6th string, 1, 2, 3, 4. And again, when I get to the end of a string, all fingers are down. Okay? This trains my fingers to stay close to the fingerboard so they don't fly away, right? It lets me see, are they all down? Am I able to do that comfortably? Notice my wrist is dropped, my thumb, poking up behind my middle finger there like it should be, not poking down towards there. If my thumb was pointing down towards there, I can't do this. My hand's not going to be big enough to do that, okay? And yet that is what I see people try to do. So if I require that my first finger goes here and my pinky goes here and the other two fingers lay down in the middle, and if my hand does whatever it needs to do to facilitate that, it'll be right when I'm done. So this, you can't play this unless you do it right. Perfect, right? Because now you know you've got it. And I go to the 4th string and the 3rd string and the 2nd string and the 1st. Now, we are doing this as an exercise to work on technique. So don't set a metronome and don't go for speed unless this is really easy. Do it as slow and comfortably as you need to make sure that when you get to the top of the 1st string, the 4th fret, again, all 4 fingers are down. And then what I do is I just slide up a fret. And now I come backwards. Now coming backwards is slightly different, and here's why. Notice that all 4 fingers are starting on the fingerboard. I will lift up one at a time. When I go to the next string, the 2nd string, I will put all 4 fingers down. Okay? When I go to the 3rd string, again, I'll put all 4 fingers down and lift up one at a time. What I don't want to do when I get to the 4th string is put just my pinky down and then try to shuffle and time lifting up my pinky and going to my 3rd finger, lifting up my 3rd finger and going to my 2nd finger, lifting up my 2nd finger and going to my 1st finger. That's a challenge. This is easy. Going down to the 5th string and the 6th string. And then what I do is I go up a fret to the 3rd fret, and now I go back up. 3. So I'm doing 3, 4, 5, 6. Then I go up a fret and come back down. And you can see that every time all 4 fingers are down when I get to the end for an ascending. And when I come down, I start with all 4 fingers down. just kind of keep going like this. Again, comfortably, until my first finger gets to the 9th fret, which puts my pinky on the 12th fret, and that's where I stop. Right? And again, even at the very end, you can see that my final knuckle, right, on my pinky is closer to the guitar body than it is to the guitar headstock. Okay, so even though I've had to shift a little bit because the frets got closer together, and that's one of the reasons that we start down here, is because this is going to require you to be a little bit more precise. This is not going to require as much precision. Now, as I said, we want to, shoot for the stars and settle for the moon. What I mean by that is that as I get going really fast, I'm not going to be able to maintain perfection in this. Right, where I'm putting all 4 fingers down first. Right, as I go fast, it's going to look more like I'm kind of crawling. Okay? And so that's what I mean by the pursuit of perfection. At a certain speed, it sort of starts to break down a little bit. But if you think of it this way, the more we work on doing it absolutely perfectly, and we continue to raise that baseline of what your technique is, right? What you can handle. We continue to raise that level of where you can play it perfectly, right? We're constantly bringing up your technique. We're constantly improving your skills, and we're constantly making it so that you can play more effortlessly, more in control, faster. Everything wins, okay? And if you think about this, like let's say you're playing along with, like a shuffle in E, right? You're playing like Sweet Home Chicago or Pride and Joy or something like that. And, it's cooking along at about 120 beats a minute, let's say. And you're trying to solo. Right? And you're playing along at that sort of, comfortable clip. But let's say that 120 beats a minute, you're trying to play some triplets. And let's say that that's kind of the fastest you can play. Okay, well, if that 120 beats a minute is the fastest you can play, and you're playing it, you're walking a tightrope, right? And one misstep, you're in the net. So I would rather you could play at 140 beats a minute comfortably, or 130 beats a minute, maybe even 140 beats not super comfortably. Maybe you're making mistakes at 140, but if you're making mistakes at 140, you're not making mistakes at 120. And that's the key, okay? We got to get you an extra 10, 20 beats in the tank. And then when you go to play at something, you're at a jam and they take that song a little bit faster than you're used to, you're okay. You're not walking that razor thin edge, waiting at any moment for you're going to mess up and that's it, you're off into the net. We don't want that, okay? So I hope that you will sort of take this, it's a very simple exercise. You may have seen it from me before. You may have seen it in other places before. But what I want you to focus on with it is this idea that use it as a litmus test for, am I doing it right? Okay? Because if you're not, if you don't see that knuckle, getting in the right place, if you don't see all 4 fingers on the fretboard, if you don't see those things, then lean into it, or you might have to get yourself down, right? It's almost always a posture thing. If your knee is lower than your hip, the guitar's going to have a tendency to slide off your leg. That's more stuff for your arms to do. They're holding it. You don't want them to have to hold it. They should be able to play. You should be able to let go, and your guitar should sit comfortably. The closer that your guitar, the nut, right, on the neck, the closer that this neck is to your own neck, I always say, the easier it is to play. I mean, if I hold the guitar up here, it's really easy. Okay, I'm holding it right now though, so it's a little bit more of a challenge. But let's say you have a strap and you can get it sitting like this and it's nice and comfortable. This is great. I can play this all day long. And it'll be super easy to play this way. Okay? The better you get, the more you can take away, or the better you can play in the face of adversity, right? So if you get to where under perfect conditions, you can play at 140, 150, 160 beats a minute, well then in the not so perfect conditions where the strap's a little bit longer because it's not your guitar, or you're sitting on a different chair and your knees up not where it's supposed to be, or you're standing instead of sitting, okay, and so the guitar's hanging differently, or you're using your blues technique. So you've got your thumb over the top and you're yanking on stuff. Okay, all of those things will take that top sort of classical perfect level and knock it down a little bit. All those little things, those little adversities, changing your hand position, changing your guitar position, all those little things sort of knock you down. So if you're playing absolutely, at 120 and you're playing only that in the perfect environment, and then all of a sudden it's not the perfect environment, you're not going to be playing there anymore. So again, we got to get that extra 20 beats in the tank so that if it comes down a little bit, you're still good. Okay? So I hope this makes sense, and I hope that you will take some time. This only takes a few minutes each day. And if you just take, 3 minutes and run through that quick little exercise each and every day, 6 months from now, you won't believe the difference. I promise. I've seen this happen so many times in private students, or students around the world that have any one of my courses and come and talk on the forum. This really, really does work, but it's easily forgotten. So take this video as a reminder to do this again. If you haven't, if you have before and aren't currently, start doing it again. If you haven't done it before, start doing it. It'll be great for you. All right, so hope you enjoyed this video. You got something out of it. I look forward to talking to you soon.